Hi guys, my name is Christina and welcome to my channel, and in today's video we're gonna talk about spoilers. Why you should try to write a story that cannot be spoiled and why I think good stories cannot be spoiled. And spoilers are not bad. First, before I talk specifically about spoilers, I want to talk about what I personally think is more important, the important part in the story. And I don't think the plot of the story is at all important. I'm gonna link you to two of my videos down below, and one is me ranting about like the modern ideas of how to structure your story, like 3-act structures, all this million step structures, all of that are so popular right now, and how I don't think that's a good idea to follow them necessarily. And another video I'm talking about if you're blocked, if you feel like a writer's block, or if you feel like story is not progressing well when you're writing, what to do, what might be the cause. So in there I'm talking about kind of what I'm going to talk briefly now is about the point of the story. What's the most important part? It's not plot. Plot serves this. So there is a point of what you're trying to say with your story, the message that you're trying to send, some experience you're trying to share. And plot is just a tool that helps you to deliver this message in the most effective way. Plot on its own is not that important. The point of the story, the message of the story, the meaning of the story, and the purpose of the story, that what is important. And another thing that I think is important in the story is hows. So how you write it, how you introduce this point. Because ideas overall, the overarching ideas of the story are not original. Usually if you look at the stories, most ideas are the same, because since the beginning of time, it seems like humanity, we knew all along what's important in life and what's bad things in life. So the message is always close to being the same for all of the stories. What is good and what is bad, we'll point out all those different aspects, and most of the stories try to help us differentiate what is good, what is bad, what will make us happy, what will make us unhappy. Basically how to navigate through this contrast of good and bad, or happy and miserable, or like basically all the stories navigate through this and teach us how to do it in many different ways. They either show us like how miserable things look like, or how we got to the miserable place, or how, to recover from this. From my opinion, that's what most of the stories are about. So the main idea will never be original, because the main idea of life, I guess, is there is very universal big ideas that a lot of story try to communicate. So plot is not that important, the point of the story is important. And then the idea of the story is not that important, the way you talk about this idea is important. Well, the first is important on the idea level, and the second is important on this craft level. So the point that you're trying to say will show how, what is the message of the story, how good is the message, and the second will show how good of an artist you are, how well you drew it, so people got the message, or how well you wrote it, so people got the message. So looking at this in this general zoomed out way, I don't see how the spoilers are dangerous to the story, because it's quite impossible to spoil the whole story if it is a good story. So if the story's point is just entertainment, then yeah. So because, for example, let's take Marvel movies. I personally not a fan of Marvel movies. I don't hate them, but I feel I don't want to waste my time watching them. So if I spend 3 hours of my time watching a movie, I want to take away more from it than Marvel movies usually deliver. So that's why. And because they usually don't deliver more than plot points and entertainment, and they usually don't talk about anything interesting, or don't try to talk about the concept of the story in some interesting way. Those like the how's not interesting, and what they say is like the message of the story is usually such a not deep concept of what story can be about. It's very surfacey, and how it's done, it's very formulaic. So that's why I'm not quite a fan, exactly because of that. But the stories like this can be spoiled, because they're more about like very surface level entertainment. There is nothing wrong about this at all. But entertainment such as this, yeah, so certain plot twists that make you laugh, certain jokes, certain reveal that make you go like, that can happen once. And when you know about this, the story is kind of spoiled for you because it doesn't have more to offer. However, when the story is deep and it has interesting house and it has interesting point, I think you cannot spoil it, because the point of the story, it's the impact it has happens when you read the whole story and when you consume the whole story. So it's fed to you through like a tiny pieces, page after page after page. It's all the small pieces combined, and this what drives the point home, is how it's slowly told, how all of this connects, and how the whole story tells kind of is essay and on this particular point. And regards to house, there is so many house in the story. There is so many house. There is no way to spoil story in that sense, in the execution type of way, because there's so many things that are in execution of the story. So you can't just say, oh, they did that, you know, and it's like, so what? So it's like so many things in there. You have to tell the story again to spoil it, you know. And I always remember the quote by Leo Tolstoy. It's I think you all guys know who is Leo Tolstoy, but it's a Russian writer who wrote War and Peace. And I read it in original. I'm smart like this, you guys. Okay. They made us read it in school. But actually, to be fair, that's a very good book. That it's actually interesting. I usually hate all the classics, especially the ones that they make you read in school. Absolutely. But it actually reads like Game of Thrones. It's really the same concept. It's like war is happening. There is a lot of like royal, like noble houses, and how they try to navigate throughout the situation, basically about life, about war, about all this politics, court life. It's actually very interesting, and it's like, it looks long, but it's Game of Thrones vibe book actually. And he has this famous quote when he was asked what his story is about. He said, if I could tell you in one answer what my story is about, I wouldn't have written my story. Meaning that the story is such a big thing, you cannot just say it in one go. What is it? What's it about? What's the point? What's the point of the story? The answer to this is the story. So that's why, in my opinion, good stories cannot be spoiled. And that's why a lot of people like telling me, especially now, it's a culture of, well, someone steals your idea. I'm like, well, steal my idea. Steal my idea about the girl from real world coming into magical world and trying to figure it out. Oh my God, go for it. Like, that idea is being around the block for a long time. Or, you know, what other idea, that she discovers something that, you know, changes her forever? Go for it, you know. Sure, please be my guest, take it. But in my story, it's not about that. That is just a plot point. My story is about how, and in the end, what is the main point that you will arrive at by the end of the story. That is combined through perspectives of multiple characters. If somebody, for example, I tell you what happens, like certain thing in book 3, like by the end, I don't think you will be spoiled. You will be confused because you don't understand how it is the point, how I arrived there, because you don't have context. Or if I tell you some plot point that happens somewhere in the middle, like somewhere like in the chapter 50, you will be like, well, okay, because it's how it planted within the story, what happened before, what will happen after, that what makes it any sort of impactful, and how we arrive there and where we go from there, basically. So basically that's what I wanted to talk about spoilers. I think if you write your story well, if you really care, if you write the meaningful story, spoilers are not important. And stories that are afraid of spoilers are just not that more of a surface entertainment level. And if you are afraid, there's a story that you want to see and you're afraid to be spoiled, don't be afraid. There is so much more value in the story than what you then expecting to get. So that's my thought about spoilers. And because there's like a huge spoiler culture around, no spoilers, there's review without spoilers. The best movies and the best like pieces of art that I consumed, I started reading after I watched reviews with spoilers, because reviewers would tell, well, hey, this happened and this happened and this happened, and that's what I thought, blah, blah, blah. And I would be like, whoa, I wonder how artists went from point A to point B, you know, how they went between those plot points and to get this point out. So that would become interesting, and I would consume this movie, or I would read this comic, or I would, you know, read this book, and I would be still blown away, and I would still love it. There is one book that I keep reading again and again and again. It's very long, and it's called I think Farsi trilogy. It's by Robin Hobb, and there's a series of like trilogies about this court in like a fantasy world, and this is the story I love. I just put it in audiobook, and I think listened through it maybe like 9 books, I think, 3 times, because there's so many beautiful houses in the story, and I'm just enjoying the craftsmanship that went to this story and the point that story is slowly crafting. That's what I enjoy. Sorry guys, the battery died, so I quickly charged it a little bit. Basically, I already said what I wanted to say, and yeah, spoilers are not that scary to the story that is well written, that is cared for by the authors, and good stories can be reread and reconsumed again and again and again, and I think you shouldn't be afraid of them, and I think you should try to write stories that can be read over and over again. And once you do this, your story gonna be amazing. That's what I personally think. But let me know what you think about spoilers down below, and consider checking other videos of mine. And thank you so much for watching this long video. Is it long? I think it was long. No, it's not. But thank you so much for watching this video and your support and your comments, and thank you.